I'll talk about timing. Hey, everybody. How's it going? It is Monday night, and that means that we are here with the chat. And I love when John catches us off guard. Tells me I have to restart the computer to make sure everything's working well. And I come in and let's go. We're ready to go.
If it makes you feel better, your computer's worse now than it was before.
Yeah. Well, that's because it's still starting up. Like I was connecting everything.
Yeah, you gotta get those squirrels. Maybe give them an extra peanut or something so they can run faster in there.
Well, I have some other ideas of what's going on, and I was going to try and fix that while we were talking, but somebody decided to go live. So
I started it at the time, and
these things happen.
I know. Who expects us to be on time, though? I mean, come on.
I mean, we could start.
Okay, well, that's MJ, I guess.
That's a lot. I expect a lot though out of everyone all the time.
That's true.
Yeah.
Not holding that against anybody because it's like, yeah, everyone's just going to come
everyone disappoints me. It's just everybody.
Everybody does. I mean, so don't hold it against yourself. So tonight is different, though. We're going to let Dan tweak a little bit while he's working there. But a few weeks ago, we did a thing about gear breaking down. And when John brought this one up, I'm like, hey, didn't we just do an episode about gear breaking down? But you want to take this a step further beyond just the gear to a very personal level, isn't it?
Exactly. We talked about the gear and how we can work around. The workaround is really what that video. And if you didn't get a chance to see it, it was about May 11th, I think, is somewhere in that ballpark. You can go find it and check it out on youtube.com/discjockeynews. Tonight, though, there's going to be those opportunities. And thankfully, I don't think any of us really had this so far, but there's going to be a time when something happens, whether gear breaks down or whatever, where you cannot perform. The performance is over, whether you were not able to even start or maybe when you are in the middle and then things happen. And tonight we're going to kind of talk a little bit about that. There's different type of events out there, how you would handle those types of situations, how you would, what would you do when basically there's just no chance of being able to salvage it. What would you do?
So we're not talking about my booth tonight.
No, we're going to leave the booth. We're going to leave the booth and how you haven't figured out what ratchet straps are yet to tighten it up on the side of the. We're not going to talk anything about that.
Knows what they are. He just he hasn't read the directions
yet. What? You got to wrap it around and then come back again, and then you got to do this. Oh,
I know how to use ratchet straps. That's how I keep my kids in the car.
I'm a Boy Scout. I can square knot this sucker.
I thought he used Baylor's twine. He's out there that part of the state.
Yeah, that's true. That would be Baylor's twine. Yeah.
You know what I would do if something broke like that? I would call the weekend handyman.
Yeah, there you go.
Get my shirt thing.
You got the shirt in there. So.
If you don't know what this is, John runs an entire other channel. He has two of them. Weekend Sportsman and Weekend Handyman, and Weekend Handywoman's another one. And he does a lot of content in this style, but about tools and outdoor stuff. And you can watch him fish in a hole in the ice at some times. Why anyone would want to do that, but he does show it, and it does look kind of neat. But
and believe it or not, it was just like 2 weeks ago when he recorded it.
Actually, for real. I'm running around in shorts. He's out there on the ice.
I'm out there on the ice, and now today, it's 90-some degrees. But that's Minnesota for us, so. So let's we're going to talk about different types of events, and the first one, because we want to kind of start in the realm of in kind of the club, because we've all been there and we've all been doing the club. MJ is an active performer in the club scene, and most of the time in the past when I was doing it, it was seldom a mobile show. It was a come in and use either all of the installed gear or most of the installed gear. Recently, in the last number of years, when I've done a bar, it's been the mobile, and that's a different world. But in those situations, MJ, where you're coming in and you're bringing your controller most of the time.
Yeah, most of the time. Yeah. It's a few here and there. The one place in the one casino has stuff there. The other place in that casino doesn't. The other casino, I have to bring my own. It's kind of hit and miss. Yeah.
So in a situation, let's look at the casino specifically. If you're there and for some reason you can't play, whether it's their gear or you just can't play, is it one of the, who's I don't want to say at fault or who's going to get in trouble, but what would the ramifications be of that at that level?
There has been points where, especially like the owner manager knows that there's issues. Right now, they know there's an issue with anybody that owns a laptop with an M1 chip. Because the one place does have its own backup computer there with music on it. Just its purpose is being there in case yours dies. It's there with stuff to get through the night. And unfortunately, the one they put in has the M1 chip. Oh. And it doesn't even work.
Oh, no.
I mean, it works, but stuff's behind. So it'll be playing normal, but on the screen, it won't be right. It'll be right sound coming out. Everything's fine. But there's something with the graphics and with the center LED screens that is screwed up. So, I mean, that was a couple months ago. I don't have that straightened out. It makes it a little difficult. But there's been times where stuff's just died. And all you kind of have to be prepared to have your phone there with mixes and throw on there. Sometimes they have a backup thing there just strictly for that. I've seen places that they have stuff plugged in, music put in the lighting laptop or the lighting computer, depending on what they're running there. And that is flipped over because that's connected to the main board. Other times it goes dark. But usually a DJ has something with them they can pop in and at least get things going until they reboot. That's kind of a given. Mm-hmm. That's why I have a 256 phone and a 256 card in here. So I have 500 gig, right off the bat for those sheer purposes that if I had to get through on my phone, I could. But it can go to any level. I mean, you know how turntables, as the motor gets old, it speeds up and slows down. You've seen some of those that vary. Mm-hmm. Well, there's clubs I've been at where guys who are using Serato on vinyl, their songs are going because the motor and the equipment that's there is so bad that every time they play a song on this deck, they have to put it in internal mode while they correct something else so that it's not going
with the speed. Yeah.
So you have a lot of little tricks like that you have to fall back on, and that's all you can do really.
So it sounds like in those situations they're anticipating if the problems are there, they're having some solutions lined up.
There's some sort of backup. I know one place that kept. This was 10 years ago. We're still using computers, but they kept a small dual CD setup right in the center just for stuck crap like that. Dan,
is it one of those things where you are become more valuable to them because you know to have it? Because I'm like in my head, I'm thinking, well, if it's all their equipment and like they've got the internal backup and stuff like that, like if something goes down, it doesn't technically fall on me as a result, but or does it? Like, do they still be like, listen, even though it was in our house, you should be ready to go no matter what?
It all depends on the owner or manager. You have no idea what a variable that becomes. Other places would be like, hey, it's cool, man. Just throw this on and you're fine. I'll pay for the whole night because it was our machine. Where somebody else is like, well, get something in here. Can't you get something in here? Call somebody. And it's your responsibility, even though it's their equipment that broke, it's your responsibility to get something in there. Don't you have a backup in your car? Don't you have this? It all kind of depends on that's a lot of times why I prefer to use my own, because I know what I'm going in there with. And I know if it fails, I know how to quickly use a backup. But if I'm using somebody else's, a lot of those booths, there's not enough room to set an iPod next to you. And some of the equipment is abused by people, because there's guys out there who just flat out abuse equipment. And you might have seen them here or there. And like,
no, never.
But yeah, it's kind of hit or miss. I can't tell you how many nights I've gotten calls from people saying, I can't get this to work. Can you help me? A lot of things. You'd be surprised. I don't know what they're doing that they're having so much trouble. Some of it is, the machines, but you really kind of have to be prepared. And I swear to you that's why I get half the jobs I get, because I am a reliable person. Mm-hmm. I throw my talent out the window because I swear there's no other reason they should be hiring me. That's because they know I'm reliable. That's it. But it's you got to have, little backups, little extras to get through a night. I mean, you have to. Mixes on your phone. If you have several, I know guys that record themselves DJing at places so that if something happens there, they have songs that they play at that venue mixed already.
Sure.
which would be different than this place or different than that place.
Mm-hmm.
And it just kind of makes sense that if something craps out, they can finish hours of stuff off just what they've pre-recorded before. So
you mentioned you get, because of you're reliable and people they trust that you're going to be able to perform and such. In that realm, when you have a DJ who doesn't show up, something happened, their car broke down, they couldn't get there. How much forgiveness is there, or is it basically you do it once and you're done and you won't get hired again?
Again, depending upon the owner or manager. A lot of times guys have backups that they'll call. I get a lot of gigs, again, last minute, because I'm reliable. You know, they know I can be there in 5 minutes and be ready to go in 5 minutes in any sort of situation. But usually most DJs, because in this realm, you kind of have to take care of yours. So if you can't do it, you have to have a backup. Like you've seen me post a couple weeks ago about the sporting events that I do. I'm bringing someone in this Friday, because we have another home game this Friday, to train him for that sheer purpose. Because if something happened and I couldn't be there, I had nobody as a backup the past 2 years. And I'm like, that's dumb, you know. So I'm bringing somebody in and you know, training them, and they're going to get a gig, a Sunday game this year. I'm just going to let them have the Sunday game for the full price. I'm not taking anything from the price, but you kind of always have to have someone in your mind that if something craps out, have somebody to call. You better be. Like I keep telling people, networking is so important in this side of things. You have to be networked to be liked, so that people will back you up and people will call you when they need a backup. That is so important on this. I can't begin to tell you. The right people and to avoid the wrong people. You know, don't get caught up in their hurricane. Did that answer it? I don't even know. I feel like I'm rambling now.
No, you kind of hit that, you know, as far as
because it's not that they're going to get mad if you can have someone feel like that.
They're going to be okay with that.
You're good as long as it's taken care of.
Mm-hmm.
That's the key.
They just don't want to have a no-show and
right.
Then nobody's there.
Yeah.
So Dan, if we kind of parallel, or I should say, shift gears a little bit and try to draw those parallels to our mobile events. You know, in some ways there's a little similarities, but you know, when we're talking a mobile event and the possibility that if we can't show or we can't perform, there may not be a backup lined up. I mean, even though if we have it, there may not be.
Yeah.
How would you envision a scenario like that going?
Well, I think as MJ kind of said, it depends. I feel like we're Ben Stowe tonight. But in all seriousness, I think it really depends upon a lot of scenarios. One of the big scenarios being, why are you not showing up? You know, to what level has impeded you from getting there? Because, you know, obviously there's a lot of things, and I'm not talking about like, oh, I've got the sniffles and I'm choosing not to go, but I'm saying something actually is preventing us from being there. I think a couple in the wedding market is going to be more forgiving of certain things than they are others. You know, even though they all impacted us, it was not a decision that was keeping us from being there. There's all something that's keeping us from being there.
I have a friend who had a heart attack one night right before a gig. That's a forgivable thing.
Yeah,
wow.
Yeah, but in the same respect, I think it depends upon the couple. As heartless, without pun intended,
right.
You know, as that might be, there are some that would be like, I don't care.
He got it covered. I mean, and he, believe it or not, he was in the emergency room checking via text. Any questions? You good? And I'm like, wow, that shows someone who will put the extra mile.
Yeah, and you almost have to.
Yeah.
Just because. But I will say that I have seen way too much on either social media or reviews of. There's one particular DJ in this area who has been known for sending replacements and last minute type of situations, or at least it seems like last minute situations by the reviews. And it doesn't go over favorably to begin with, but he continues to do it. And that's that's where the venues are even starting to go like, this is not a guy we want to associate with.
Right.
And so it's carrying a lot more weight than just than just the bride. I don't think, when you relate it to the club thing and the parallel to the club thing, the owner, unless they, I'm sure they network too, to a degree, but unless they own a bunch of places, you kind of get barred from one. A bride, her and her husband or her spouse, that direction is the only recourse they have is more reputation damage.
Sure.
Ours is the same way, because if you get a reputation being someone who blows stuff off, because there's a DJ in the city who does, no one will have anything to do with him at all. No one will take a job he has. No one will give him a job because he has screwed so many people. It's like, nothing.
Yeah.
If you want that reputation, none of us are going to be attached to you in any way, shape, or form. So.
That's it's kind of interesting. You mentioned, Dan, you were talking about some things are going to be more forgivable than others in that scenario. I wonder, because we've had DJs like the guy and maybe this isn't part of his strategy, but there was a DJ similar who changed out many a times at the last minute, or he would call the client and say, "I'm sorry, I can't take your show," because the reality is that he had booked another wedding at a higher dollar.
That's what this guy does occasionally.
Yeah, and he did that time and time again. But there was one summer that his grandmother died 6 times. And I don't believe he had 6 grandmothers. Could be. I mean, I could, but it literally got a couple of the times when Lori took a call or I took a call, and the brides were upset and they're like, "Do you have something open for this weekend?" And it's like, "Oh gosh, I think we do. What's going on?" "Well, my DJ's grandmother just died, and he's so distraught he can't make it to my wedding this weekend." It's like, "Was it DJ XYZ?" And they're like, "Yeah, do you know them?" "Yeah, his grandmother died 2 weeks ago. And a month ago." So in a situation like that, I wonder if some of the people in our industry are going to become jaded to, "Oh yeah, that's just a story," and not really, that I'm having a heart attack and I'm in the ER right now. No, you're not. You're blowing me off. If there's going to be some of that out there.
Well, I think that's exactly where MJ was saying. Like, you need to have that networking. You need to have that connection. I've had my group of friends and stuff like that, but I think a lot of my DJ friends, I've always kind of reached out a little bit farther from my inner circle, like as far as geographically. And yet recently I've started to kind of pull that in a little bit more. Like, I always had people that I referred, but it wasn't people that I would pick up the phone and start texting or call and see what was going on or bounce ideas off of. And I've gotten, like, within the last year and a half, and maybe it's COVID, maybe it's for whatever reason, but I've been doing a lot more of that reaching out and that personal touch with the ones that are local. And even just this afternoon, like, I was bouncing ideas, a guy who lives like literally 3 blocks from my house. He's doing a monogram tomorrow or this weekend coming up. And we just started chatting about, how can he make this work with the equipment that he's got, from where he's shooting and all these kind of ideas. And afterwards, like, I got done with the conversation. And I'm like, yeah, I need to make sure that, we're staying in touch, because, even if we're not backing each other up, it's just a better knit. So exactly as John said, if you are having a heart attack, that you are, your story is definitely going to have credence, because they know that that's the type of person you are.
Yeah. If you're the type of person that will help other people out in a real need situation, they'll help you out in a real need situation. But if you screw people, you're going to get screwed too. I mean, it's just, yeah.
I will say you need to be careful, though, for lack of better terms. And what I mean by that is, you can have credible situations that come up that really need your help. But if you find yourself in a situation where you have a lot of credible things coming up, even though it's 100% legit, everything's on the board and you're not burning bridges or anything, it's because you suddenly, like, I believe him, but man, he's had a lot of bad luck. Like, just you want to be careful. Like I said, not that they suddenly would have a weird, but they'd have a weird feeling about you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't know. It's again, where I think that networking is so important. If you spend enough time around just chit chatting with somebody, they're going to be able to tell whether you're BSing about everyday things. There are people, like I said, there are people in this industry that if they were call up and said, hey, I got a flat tire, can you give me a hand, whatever, absolutely, I'd help them. But when it came to work and DJing, I don't have anything to do with them.
Sure.
So they're a friend. They're a DJ friend. They're not a friend, if that makes sense. So you got to build those, because even if they don't have someone, if there's someone that you can trust, they might be able, if there's someone that you can trust their judgment, they might be able to bring someone in who would also be just as reliable. So that's it. It really becomes this bigger picture. As much as I hate networking and people, it is the most valuable thing when it comes to a safety net of any sort. You forget a power cord for your computer. I can't tell you how many times I've seen guys forgot the power cord for my Mac and have 8 people answer right, like on Facebook, 8 people answer right away. I'm just down the street at this place. I got 2 of them. I'll be up in a minute. They'll walk up and let them, little stuff like that.
Uh-huh.
And MJ, avoiding all people, has 12 versions of every cable and cord that he could possibly use.
When I went out last Saturday, I'm like, okay, so I have the one in the case, and I'm like, well, I'm going to put one in the bag too. And I'm like, why do I want to put one in the bag? Because I also have one in the car. So I literally had 3 power cords for my computer with me Saturday night. So I'm like, whatever, I don't even care.
Yeah, a little bit of redundancy there.
So what? Let's look at this. Do you have a second way? Because my thought is, what if you do venture down all those boulevards of help, and everybody's busy? Because right now I see a lot of people filling a lot of gigs because there's a lot of people wanting to DJ right now.
And
what if all your avenues are empty for legitimate reasons? And
that was really why I wanted to bring tonight's topic back again to this, is because gear can let us down, but it's gotten to the point now where health could let someone down. And we're getting calls. Today we had 2 calls today from people who are replacing, in one case because the DJ, they found out they weren't a good fit. The second one is because the DJ had gone in for surgery. Things like that happen. And the DJ went in for surgery. All of his contacts and networking couldn't find someone, and he apologized profusely, but he had to basically say, good luck. What do you do when that your circle, and I've had opportunity or situations like that where it's like, okay, so if something happens, I know all of my local people aren't. And there was actually a couple of times over the years where I had an event and it's like, if something happens, I might have to, on a Thursday, fly in one of my friends from out of state. Literally.
I thought he was going to say, I would have to hire my youngest to go out and take care of it.
Well, no, my youngest, he's a big Portugal the Man fan, so they would be hearing that all night long.
Never know. All right, so let me ask you, because you're in a different situation I am, John, when it comes to geographic and people around you. For us, I know with the people that I am friends with on Facebook, if push comes to shove, I can just do a post, emergency, this has happened, who's available? And there would be people that would, I guarantee, someone along the ways, even if they had to drive from Erie, which Erie is like 2.5, 3 hours away, we would have people that could fit it. In your area, do you have that 2 or 3? Dan, the same way. I know you're you're kind of like in between him and I with population around you. Do you have that to where you would just be able to post on your social media, like let's say it's a Thursday or Friday, Saturday emergency, who can help?
And my situation, I know in my friends group, I have 10 DJs, let's say, that are within an hour and a half of my office that would be a possibility that I could post up there and put that. But the probably the greatest value of that now, this social media connection, is that they may not be able to help, but I know they have got their 10 or 15 connections too. And that can spiral very quickly. And I've actually seen that on a couple of occasions from one of my friends in St. Cloud. Somebody couldn't do a show, and she basically said, hey, I can't help out, but can any of my other DJ friends? And it was like this doink, 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 and this way over here, which I happen to be a friend of that person also, they were like, yeah, I can help out. So it became this little spider web of connections that was able to cover the show. So yes, it could happen, and social media has been a huge part of that. The question becomes is, we have no idea of the quality of the person. You know, we know it's a live body is really the best. You know, it's someone who's maybe had some, you know, they've got DJ experience. We're pretty sure they have some level of that, but beyond that, I mean, it's better than nothing, I suppose, is really what it becomes down to. Could be the greatest DJ ever. We don't know. It's just a complete unknown.
I think that would be the hardest thing that I would have is having that situation, because I've even had certain things where I've been looking for somebody, and I'll put a post up that I'm looking for somebody. It's not an emergency situation. It's not like I'm trying to fill to replace me, but like even when I was trying to bring somebody like into the fold, if you call that, you know, for an assistant and stuff like that. And I had some people that were interested, and I went, this is not going to be a good fit for me. And for my business, like they're not going to represent my brand in any way, shape, or form. And I realize when you're in an emergency situation, like beggars can't be choosers, but I also worry that, you know, if I threw up emergency, that the first person that I hear from is going to be that person that I'm not really wanting to fill in. But I will say this, it becomes one of those things where you do have to realize that if it is a true emergency, you kind of got to take what you can get. Because you've already exhausted that inner circle. I would assume you would start with that inner circle. I will say I have that situation that I think, but I really actually believe, because of some of those friendships that I have, that if I were to throw something up, I would have people that would be driving, like you mentioned about the 2.5, 3 hours. I believe that the people that would come to my rescue are the ones that are a little bit farther away.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing wrong with that. Yeah,
no, for sure. And you know, it's people that we'll call it that first circle of friends that you know who they are, what they do, and you have complete faith. You're in good shape. It gets to the point where you've exhausted the first circle of friends, and you've maybe hit the second circle of acquaintances. And beyond that, this is where the dilemma comes in. I'm 24, 48 hours away from the wedding. I can't do it because something happened. I'm having eye surgeries, whatever. You know, that happened to me in 2016. I can't do it. So I've exhausted do I say, okay, you know, Miss Bride, I'm so sorry I can't do your wedding. I made some, here's 3 people that I've had are open for Saturday. I don't know anything about them. Do I basically cut her loose and say, go talk to these people? Do I cut her loose and say, sorry, I can't do it. Good luck. Here's the yellow pages. Oh, what are the yellow pages? Well, you're not that old yet. You know, how does a person handle that? Because if we hire or bring that person in and they're working under our banner, and if they stink the place up, now that person's going to expect to get paid. I'm probably not going to be able to charge them because we ruined their day. And then there's that possibility that I might be on the hook for having to pay for the wedding because we ruined the wedding. And there's this cool little fine line, and this is a conversation that we had with one of the DJ insurance companies a few years back, because the question is that if a DJ is, you know, liability covers if a speaker falls on someone, what happens if I ruin the wedding? What happens if I do something so bad? Where's that line where the insurance won't cover it anymore? And there is a line. There have been lawsuits where couples have sued the DJ because they didn't play the right first song. They've sued them for $10,000, $20,000. And the liability attorney usually gets it thrown out of court, but they're there to handle some of those things. If I don't show up and don't let anyone know, and I'm in big trouble. If I send someone who ruins the day, as the business, I'm in big trouble, and my insurance isn't going to cover my butt. So it becomes safer for me to basically say, I can't do it. Here's your retainer back. Here's a few names. Good luck. Thank you. I'm sorry. Over trying to find that replacement. And that's kind of a weird situation because it makes you feel like a jerk, but yet you got to do what you got to do. I
would, and maybe this is just the type of person that I am. I wouldn't bring them in under my banner unless I really didn't have an option. But I would definitely reach out to the couple after I line up, hopefully more than one person. After I put a potential together, and I basically, if I'm physically able to, play the go between between the couple and the DJ. And for the type of person I am, I'm going to reach out. I'm going to be like, listen, I'm willing to take the money, pay this person. I just want you to be on board with who it is that you're picking. And I realize we're doing this last second and you really don't know them from Adam, but here's what I know about them here. And if it's legitimately nothing, here's their websites, here's their Facebook, here's, do what you can. Tell me who you're most comfortable with. We'll put that together. And then you're going to do everything with them. It's no longer me. I'm just going to help take care of it. So that way, because I feel horrible as a person that I would have to do that to a couple, and that's just kind of the way I roll in that aspect, because I wouldn't want to be in that situation and go, okay, I'm giving you your money back. Bye. And because I could see like the karma about it, for lack of better terms, the PR that goes with it.
Oh yeah.
Would all be, I don't care that my DJ had eye surgery. He left us, 48 hours before our wedding, and we had to find somebody and put it together. I'd rather than have them say 48 hours before our wedding, our DJ had eye surgery and he's not going to be able to be at our wedding. But you know what he did for us? He put us in touch with these guys, and yeah, they weren't him, but we couldn't have him. So he did that for us, and he stepped it up and covered it. So that way, so that right there, I feel would earn you so many brownie points in the long term that it would be worth it if at all possible. Kind of like, John, what you were saying about flying one of your friends in, like, that's not something you can go, hey, by the way, I now need to increase our fee by like $800 because I had to buy a plane ticket last second for John to fly in from Minnesota. Like, I don't, that's not going to fly. So no pun intended, but, I know it's horrible tonight.
I didn't pick that up. It's a good one. Yeah.
Thanks. But I really feel like that's where you're doing something to have that, again, that servant attitude. We've talked about that so many times. How do you make great things? It's having that servant attitude and realizing that you're putting them before anything related to your business.
Okay, the scenario, we've got to bring somebody else in, and we're bringing in someone who charges much more. And we, as friends of that person, know that, I'm going to throw numbers out there, we charge $1,000, we charge the bride $1,000, and our friend is a $2,000 DJ. We talk to our friend DJ, and he's like, yep, you know what, Dan, I can cover it. I'm good with that. Do you go and offer to pay your friend the additional money that they would typically charge? How would you handle when it came to the pay side of things? Would you and say, you know what, I'm going to pay you your $2,000 because you're basically saving my butt? How would you handle that side of it?
I would ask him first. I'd just be like, listen, straight out, this is what I charged him. I know you're more. What are you willing to do? What are you willing to do? And say, hey, listen, I'm willing to save your butt. It's 48 hours beforehand. I know I'm throwing things together. Just, I'm fine with the money. I'm fine with the money that you were gonna charge him and go, well, you know what? I really need the $2,000 to be able to cover it for the expense of whatever. Then done. Like, what is it worth to you?
Right.
I mean, that reminds me of an Ellen Berg thing where, and I forget what he was referring to, but basically it was like a bad email or whatever that was sent, and how much they were wanting a refund, and it was like, well, how much would you be willing to spend to get that review that they left removed? I'd be willing to pay anything. Well, then why didn't you do the refund in the first place?
Exactly.
What is it worth to you to have that person come in and save your butt? Is it worth the $2,000? Yeah. All right, then do it. Don't even question it. But I think having that conversation is important, just because also you're not asking them to come down to the price. You're asking them, what do you want for this?
Ron in the Facebook chat here, thanks for being with us, Ron. Joel, a lot of Brent, a lot of with us tonight, but Ron just made a couple of comments on this, that he always finds someone has someone lined up and such as a backup, and if he does, then he will basically pay the difference. If he has to pay for it out of his own pocket. That's just a policy. And this is probably the big thing with tonight's show, is that these discussions and these thoughts are things that people need to be thinking through in advance when the stress of the moment isn't there. how would I handle this? And I, what Ron is describing and what Dan is describing is, it actually Dan's way of saying, hey, this is what I charge, but what do you need to have? I know I wasn't that eloquent with asking. It would basically be basic. It's like, okay, so you charge $2,000. Here's a check for the 2,000. I would have not even, because I hate negotiating. So it's like,
probably depends also the friend. You know what I mean? That's the thing. If we're talking, I reached out to somebody who were more acquaintances. Maybe. I think I'd be more willing to just be like, you know what, we're not even gonna have this discussion here. You're saving my butt, and we don't know each other. But in the same respect, somebody who there's like a two-way street kind of going on, that's another where I think they might be more willing to. And it's not negotiation, I guess, in my viewpoint, but just
a discussion. To put all the cards on the table and say, here's where we're at. What do we need? We're going to make this work one way or the other. What does it take?
Yeah. How does the one guy say that? I disagree with this. He's an old gentleman here in the city, does motivational speaking. He said in business, everything's negotiable, which I disagree. But in that situation, you're negotiating for your best outcome, whether it be you dishing it out to make sure it's covered. But whatever you're doing it for your best outcome, and that's what you have to do sometimes. Price of doing business. I want to address two things that Joel Lovelace said.
Yeah.
And they're both exactly how I want to ask them. If you can't find someone, one, he talked about Facebook DJ groups, and another one he talked about venues having vendor lists. Would you be willing to go to either one of those to find a fill-in? And in my opinion on that, is that I would maybe go to the Facebook group before I would go to the venue, because I don't want to look bad in the venue's eyes if I don't have to. But on your side of that, are those two options or either of those two options something you guys would use?
Let's go into a situation where the venue, I get to the venue and I'm starting getting things set up, and all of a sudden I get a phone call, and we had a situation similar, but it thankfully wasn't that severe. But I get a phone call that something horrible's happened. A child, and in my case, it was one of the children was in a serious car accident, and totaled the truck while I'm setting up. And it's like, oh my gosh, how is it? Oh, everything is fine, seatbelts, and it's. But if that would have gone south, there was no way I would have been able to do the show. Even with that, it was still there was part of me that for that first 2 hours I wasn't focused in on what I should be doing. But let's say that something horrible happened, spouse dies, there's a death in the family, which is usually obviously the biggest thing. I know Brian Red and I have had this discussion, and he's basically, you know what, I'm going to put that game face on. And other DJs have mentioned this. I'm going to put the game face on. We're going to do the show, and I'm going to cry for dad later type of thing. Some of us can't do that. I mean, we're running on emotion. That would be a situation, I think, that, as you mentioned, that venue list, I would probably go to the venue and say, hey, can you, I just can't. And I would be surprised with most of the venues I've worked at over the years. They'd probably say, you know what, I get it. We'll make some phone calls. And I've even received calls from venues that are saying, hey, the DJ couldn't do it tonight. Can you? And it could have been that type of situation for all we know. So I think that's where I'd go to the venue list. Anything that's 12 or more hours in advance, Facebook group would be the way to go, is to go out there and try to see if you can make connections there.
I think it's also important to recognize, I mean, like we said, you kind of have your A list, and maybe this wraps into your C list, is reaching out to those venues and that. I pride myself, I think in some aspects, the venues that I work at the most often, I've really started to develop, in one case, a friendship with the venue and have for a couple of years with the venue owner. And the other one is we're above acquaintances. We'll never get to the friend level for a lot of professional reasons, but I can have a conversation with them in a very friendly manner. We'll call it that. Okay. Mm-hmm. So again, above acquaintances. I feel that if I was in a situation where I was like, listen, this is just not happening tonight, I would have no problem talking to them and being honest with them and be like, listen, I need some help here. I've gone through my list. I know you have a vendor list, and I know you're very particular about how your place runs. can you share me your list? I want to know if there's anybody I'm missing that I wouldn't have thought about before. And being able to utilize that. Now, again, some of the venues where I don't know, or you even talked about, you'd be nervous about about the venue looking down at you, call the other venue. The venue that I'm friends with, because they've all got lists, right? So you're not looking for necessarily proprietary information. You're just looking for a list of people you may not have thought of that don't crush your radar.
Ladies and gentlemen who are watching this, there's your gold nugget for the night.
So that was Dan wanting to have ice cream for dessert. Mom said no, and he just went and asked Dad. That's about what that was.
Beautiful, absolutely beautiful.
That was good.
There's my thumbs up purpose. There we go.
Oh. In the chat, feel free to drop if you have a short story. Don't make it a long a paragraph. But if something like this has happened and you have solved the problem in a way we haven't talked about, try to drop it in real quick. We have a few more minutes. Maybe you've come up with a solution. Whether it be maybe a video, you've turned one of your Scrim devices into a DJ projection device or something.
Well, I will say I'm envious of multi-ops in this aspect because. Especially multi-ops that are big enough and are doing it the right way. And I don't, and nothing to knock some of them, but I know there are ones out there, and this was like brilliant idea when I heard it, and that there are multi-ops who will purposely keep one of their DJs or a team of their DJs, like, partner team there, and pay them for a weekend that is their off weekend.
Yep.
And their only purpose is to stay local and stay ready.
Stay on call.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And we will pay you, not your normal rate, maybe for a wedding, but and then they rotate, who's the on call, because I mean that right there could be a lifesaver in itself if you've never had to use it.
That's a smart business. I don't know if you would call it decision, whatever. That's someone who's running a business well right there. Yeah. But
I think within that also, if you're looking for some new people to network with, look for some multi-ops, not for the purpose of, hey, I want to come be on your team, but hey, I'm a single op. I want to keep things going, because here's the other thing. And I've kind of developed my list of people that I refer when I'm booked. I have two companies that I have moved near the top of the list that are multi-ops for certain times of the year, because I know that if somebody's going to have something open, it's probably going to be them, just because their team has gotten so large. Right. And maybe they won't, but certain times of the year, I know, I'm like, listen, I know I'm booked. I know the guy up the street is booked, and I know the one, across the river is booked. You know what? I'm going to save the bride a lot of times. Go check out this guy, go check out this guy. And if they're not available, somebody on their team might be.
Do you feel responsible I'm guessing you do, to help the couple, or, if it's a birthday or whatever it is, replace that? Because you keep talking about giving them information and making phone calls. Like, for me, I would be doing all the footwork unless I absolutely could not do any of the footwork.
Right.
Is that what you're kind of thinking of when you're saying giving them, go call so-and-so, go call so-and-so?
Well, the instance I was just talking about, I'm booked. This isn't like something happened and I need to cover. If something happened, I need to cover. If I'm physically able to make the phone calls, I'm doing all the groundwork and then giving them the last, here's your choice.
You're helping them fill in on it, on a future date that you have already booked, which I do that all the time. That's the first thing I say is, would you like any recommendations, so that they can build that mindset that you are available. So if that ever happens again, like, hey, we know you're booked for this. Can you help us out? And then you get venues started doing that. 2 New Year's Eves ago, before the lockdown, I had a company that owns a bunch of different restaurants and bars all over the city, and they needed 3 or 4 spots filled, and I helped them fill all those spots. And I felt pretty good saying, yes, this person can do this one can do this one, I'm going to do this one, sort of thing. And that's a good feeling, and it makes you look good. Again, why I think I get hired. I'm reliable.
Right.
So yeah, for sure. That's that extra mile, that servant thing, what you just said, Dan. That's all that is. Yeah.
What goes around comes around. It's karma through and through. And and some people, I know some people do it for very selfish reasons. The idea of like, listen, if I refer these people, then they're going to refer me. And I will say that I tuck that back in my brain when when I'm hearing from certain groups, and then there's others that I know I've referred a ton of events to, and I've never heard from them. But in the same respect, they're still on my list because I still need to potentially help this couple out and give myself good PR.
Yeah. For sure. So
it's weird how stuff can fall that way. Person, that may come back to you.
Exactly. And even if it doesn't, it's that kind of, you started talking the karma thing. Is that
you just did a good job, and that's all you worry about.
If I help somebody and they may never turn around, but someone's going to someday help me in a situation, and
pay it forward.
Pay it forward. I really like that line. So I think the big thing, we're going to wrap up here, gang, because Howie's going to be coming up here in just a little bit out at DJNTV.com/chill. He's going to have Stephanie Rivkin in with him tonight. If you guys don't know Stephanie, go to DJNTV.com/chill, just a little ahead of 10 o'clock Eastern. Shut your camera off, shut your mic off so you can watch. And Stephanie's just a fun person, very knowledgeable in the entertainment side of the whether it's karaoke side of it or the DJ side of it. Just a nice person you're going to enjoy. That bubbly personality, and Howie's bubbly too. So there's that. But yeah, that'll be a fun one. But the big takeaway from tonight is, I think, is to think through. Maybe not write it. You don't have to write it down, but just to really think through, and maybe even go to the point of having some way of, if you were incapacitated, of how you or your things would be covered up. And that kind of takes us back to a discussion we had a few months ago, talking about having passwords and different things available. Because if you were incapacitated and you've got everything on DJ Event Planner, which would be smart because everything can be there, somebody would need to access that to be able to perform and get those songs and that information. So thinking through it today, while there's no stress, there's no strain, having that kind of in line is going to save you someday a lot of stress. I'm thinking so.
I would say, John, you said about not necessarily writing it down. I'd write it down and give it to somebody. Give the backup plan to somebody you know and trust.
Yeah. The more I'm thinking, especially getting that DJ Event Planner type of thing. Yeah, that would be the way to do it. So
definitely.
Let's see. Tomorrow night, Howie's up tonight, of course, at 10 o'clock Eastern in a few minutes here. Tomorrow night, we've got a Tuesday night with Ben Stowe that we're going to be talking about some of the things that are going on with Marquee next week. Next Tuesday night, Ben and Kat are going to be in Chicago with the Marquee Show, marqueeshow.com. Tickets still available if you want to go and check out the exhibit hall. They actually got a really nice exhibit hall. This might be the biggest exhibit hall since... the last Mobile Beat, which was 2019, that was a little bit smaller. We might be seeing a bigger exhibit hall than the Mobile Beat in 2019. It's got a lot of great stuff coming in. But NLFX Pro is going to be there, and they're going to be repping some companies. And they were talking tonight. We recorded it tonight because we're not going to be able to shoot it tomorrow or do it tomorrow night live. But it'll go live tomorrow night, and you guys will be able to check out some of the gear deals that are going to be going on next week. And if you're in the market for some different things, you might want to check that out and be able to make a phone call during the Marquee Show to NFX Pro to get yourself some great deals coming up. So Howie put the DJNTV link in the chat. Thank you, Howie. And then Brian and Jay will be back tomorrow night. When MJ, are you up this week? Is this your week on for Wednesday?
Every single Monday, I come down to, I don't know, and then John gives me a topic, or Dan or somebody. I'm still trying to figure out summertime. I promise you that we are going to have a record box person coming in. We have another contact with Pioneer that is going to help. It's going to be this month sometime, so we're definitely covering record box this month. I have someone to cover Serato next month, so we're going to have all the softwares except for a certain one that we're never going to say out loud again. And for those of you who did you like how I typed it the other day, Dan? That was kind of creative. But as of this right now, I don't know. I think I'm going to do a show on mixing, and we're going to try. Let's word it this way. I'm going to do a show on music and mixing on the Music and Mixing Show. But it's going to be a little different because of copyright stuff. We're going to try to do it again on Twitch, but we're going to broadcast it everywhere so you know where it's at, but you can't see the audio or hear the audio. Can't see the audio. See, I can see audio, but you can't hear the audio unless you go to Twitch, because I feel it's important to cover songs and all this stuff. I think it's really important. and stuff you can't know unless you're hearing it. And that's why I want to do it over there. And that's why I think it's important. So look Wednesday night. Join me on Twitch, twitch.tv/discjockey news, a music and mixing show about music and mixing. But you are going to see the video on other things, my YouTube, Disc Jockey News YouTube, Facebook, all those things. But there won't be audio there. So when you see that, jump on over to Twitch. You do not have to sign up for anything. You don't have to download anything. Just point any browser to twitch.tv/Disc Jockey News, and you can check out the show about music and mixing called Music and Mixing.
Wonderful.
I should do stuff with my voice someday.
Yeah, you should. Maybe you could be like that person who makes announcements at the dentist office. Dr. Peterson wanted in the cleaning room.
Every time I think of the Pee Wee Herman movie, calling Mr. Herman, calling Mr. Herman. You guys don't remember that.
Yeah, sorry, I'm not that
Watched
old.
it, but I don't remember it.
I don't remember. Pee Wee who? What? I'm not that old. Let's see. 2 weeks from tonight, we will have our June virtual expo night. That's coming up in 2 weeks. We're going to be talking 28th. This one, where we moved it back a week because of the Marquee show. So we'll be coming in.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, and where this one's going to be about microphone work. We're getting. We have Randy Bartlett as our headliner for the night, talking mic and making announcements at your events. So we've got some really good content coming to you there. And then we're jumping right into the July one. The July one is going to be about lighting of your events. And we've got some really cool stuff that's going to be happening that night. This is also going to be the one that will have our virtual exhibit hall back again. We're doing that a few times a year. And in July, we will have that again. So you guys will be able to come in a little early and check out some of the exhibitors and sponsors for the DJNTV shows, because they'll have their room and you can come in and see what's new with the companies, because there's going to be some new products introduced at that show that you will not have seen prior to. They'll be introduced that night. That's July 17th. But there's going to be some new stuff, and it's your chance to come in there and say, hey, thanks for supporting one of the things we like to watch on a regular basis. So it'll be a good night. Looking forward to both shows, talking weddings and then talking lighting. Holy cats, we gotta get going, guys. Howie's ready to go.
He is. He's always ready to go, though. So.
He is. He's like a Boy Scout.
Well, on that note, thank you very much for taking time out of your Monday night to come and join us. Hopefully you started to brainstorm some of the ideas that you can get in place to have your backup plan ready to go, that God forbid something were to happen and you can't be there. And you just gotta figure it out. So have yourself a wonderful night. Join Howie, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.